Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cyrus Webb Presents. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. So glad you guys could join us once again. For us tuning in on the simulcast on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and on X. We're glad you all can be with us. Going to bring in our friends over on Instagram. They can be a part of our conversation. And last but certainly not least, going to connect with our friends over on Amazon Live. And I have the privilege of once again welcoming an author to our program. I got a chance to interview her earlier this year. She's out now with a new book in paperback. Going to be able to talk to her as well. So I'm really excited about that. And we're now live on the Amazon Live platform with Cyrus Webb Presents. If you guys are new to us on the Amazon side, I'm going to type you guys a welcome message over there. If you're new, make sure you hit that follow button either here in this corner or down below. You also will see the new book by our next guest. I'm so excited to welcome back author Helen Winslow Black to our broadcast today. She's the author of a book I had a chance to read earlier this year, Songs My Mother Taught Me. Now she's out with the book you guys see on our screen, Seven Blackbirds. We're going to talk to Helen not only about her love of storytelling, but how she's been able to take issues that she's passionate about to put them in novels, to be able to not only get us to thinking, but also to taking the journey with the characters as well. If you guys are new to Helen, we'll let you know how to stay connected with her as well. But Helen, thank you so much again for the time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on again, Cyrus. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Well, look, you've had a lot of these. Part of my
Yeah, yeah.
routine, Helen, when I'm prepping for a segment is I go back
Mhm.
if I see the guest has done previous interviews to make sure one, I'm not asking them the question they get asked all the time, but two, just to kind of get a flavor of not only what the host is taking away from the book and what I thought has been so interesting, especially in one interview I saw you do, if people didn't know, they would think that this was a work of nonfiction and I think for me as a reader, what that says is you've really made these characters real. So I want to talk about Kim.
Absolutely.
What has it been like for you
Absolutely.
to bring Kim to life and to share her journey in these books?
That's a real compliment, Cyrus. And that's a real compliment, and people have often told me that my writing is so real. And and I think that when you're telling a story, especially if you're dealing with difficult topics such as
Right.
domestic violence or bereavement or anything,
Right.
um, if you ground it in place and time and really fully flesh out the characters and get real descriptive, I think it helps anchor the story, and it gives the reader an in into stepping into the character's shoes, and
Right.
then and walking along with them through whatever the journey is, the journey du jour.
Yeah, and I think that's the great thing. So I want to go back and I want to say hello to you guys over on Instagram. You guys are already coming in. Terry, hello to you. Iris Bowling, hello to you. Good way to see you as well over there on IG. And I see you guys over there on Amazon as well. So for those who don't know, as I mentioned, you and I interviewed earlier this year, Helen, with your book, Songs My Mother Taught Me. And in that book, we were introduced to a character named Kim. Now, I have to be honest and tell you, I did not realize that character was one you introduced years ago in another work that now is being
Right.
released with Seven Blackbirds. How did you kind of come up with the composite of Kim? And I use that word because I feel like Kim could be a compilation of people who are not only put in difficult situations, but have to make choices for themselves and their family. How did Kim first come to you?
How did she first come to me? Yeah,
Mhm.
so to back up a little bit and explain why this book came out right now,
Sure.
Songs My Mother Taught Me, I got such a lovely reception with that book that I decided to issue a second edition of Seven Blackbirds, which I wrote, oh, I can't remember how long ago, over 10 years ago,
Yep.
about the same character. So it's now kind of a prequel. And the reception to Songs was so lovely. I thought, I'm going to bring that back for new readers with a snappy new cover, and I'm going to time the publication date. And this is the important part, Cyrus, to coincide with October, which is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And
Right.
so that's kind of how that happened. Now, the character of Kim, when I wrote that book, I was actively raising four children, and I was pregnant and gave birth to my fifth. So motherhood was very much on my mind. Motherhood and the way it shapes and changes a woman. And Kim is is in both books, and then also in the next one, which deals more with the next generation. She's my vehicle for exploring how the choices, young men and women make choices when they come into young adulthood, but especially the ones that women make in love can have really profound impact on their whole futures. This is a young woman who discovered, who unfortunately, after several years of marriage, they have their first baby, and her husband kind of flips out. So she makes the decision to leave the marriage. And yes, she is a composite. I'm the AARP is after me, as just like the Stan Ridgway song. I've been around the block for a little bit. I've got 5 adult children, and I collect stories. I probably said that to you when we discussed songs. People talk to me all the time, so it's very easy for me. And writing is just natural to me. I've been doing it since I was 3, and taking notes. Oh my gosh, taking notes. I'm always asking my family members, "Okay, write that down for me, will you?" But so she's a composite of a lot of different experiences, most of which were not my own, but I can analogize, and any woman my age has had, unfortunately, Cyrus, in her past, instances where she was not treated properly, or had unfortunate experiences. And I had 3 people in mind when I created this character. And writing is my way of working out the stories that I hear that are painful. In a way. It's how I figure it out. They bother me, they affect me, and I'm like, why did this happen? Why did this happen to this character, or whatever? And I write it out, and that's my way of kind of coming to terms with it, and figuring out how to make that elevate a conversation to a healing level.
Yeah. And see, it's so interesting. I didn't know about, as you just shared with us here, Helen, the 3 people you had in mind when you created. But for myself as a reader, again, that's why I use that word composite. I felt like there will be readers, men and women, I should say, that can read this book and see bits and pieces of themselves, bits and pieces of signs they ignored, like Kim did, but also important choices they make, not only for themselves, but those they care about, as we see Kim does in the book. So I want to talk about what you just said, because I think this is an interesting conversation that we didn't have last time, Helen. That is, we talked about the people speaking to you. When did you realize that gift of being able to craft stories in your mind and then to be able to set them free on paper?
I think probably when I was in college. Although I could take it all the way back to 3rd grade, when I wrote my first short story, and the principal was like, "This is cool," and we mimeographed this little and I was like, "Wow, this is like so cool." It was, I think it was in college that I really started taking writing courses and writing all the time. Of course, I was very young then. I think it's later on in life, when I realized that people talk to me.
Yeah.
They will walk up to me and share their stories. And be standing in the airport rental car line with my husband, and of course it drives him crazy, but this woman, she'll tell me her whole life story. And it's like, how come they don't do that with me? And I'm like, well, you're 6'5" and you look like John Cleese. You're too intimidating. But they just tell me their stories, and that's a gift. And as I was saying before, I take this all in, and it just moves me so much. And so I write about it.
Yeah. Did it make it more difficult for you or easier for you, Helen, in being able to slip into Kim's skin and tell this story in her voice?
I tried to channel my inner Kim, and there were many scenes, many painful scenes
Hmm.
that were extremely hard to write. You do everything first. I gotta write. You clean the sink. You do all this stuff, and you just buckle down and do it. And the same for the other book. There were scenes that were so painful for me to write. I remember especially the 9/11 happens in that book, and that just really took me off. For a couple of weeks, I was like, "Don't ask me to do anything." I just, yeah. But I think. But on the other hand, I'm realizing now, Cyrus, as we speak, that when I put myself in her shoes, in a way, that's a comforting feeling because I know I'm in control of what happens. And I'm not going to ultimately, of course, it's an uplifting book with some humor in it, ultimately, I'm not going to let anything really bad happen to that girl. I'm going to make this story come out right. I'm her shepherd, and I'm going
Yeah.
to walk through this. And so there's that also, so that's countered, the difficulty of it is countered by that sense of artistic control, I suppose.
Love that. Well, Songs My Mother Taught Me, the title definitely had meaning behind it. I think when people read that particular book, I know myself included, I think they can probably swap out the word songs for lessons, or even
Right.
examples. Talk to us
Yeah.
about this book with Seven Blackbirds.
Yeah,
About the title.
about the title, yes,
Mhm.
yes. Seven Blackbirds it's the title of a nursery rhyme. Seven blackbirds in a tree, and it's I'll explain why it does this, but it
Yeah.
represents that transformational moment when an abused woman realizes that this atmosphere of abuse that she's living in can only exist in secrecy, and that she's got to shatter that atmosphere by telling her secrets so she can recover, heal, and move forward.
Mhm.
So the last line, it's a counting rhyme. Seven blackbirds in a tree, count them and see what they be. One for sorrow, two for joy, three for a girl, four for a boy, five for silver, six for gold, seven for a secret never to be told.
Mhm.
And timing is everything.
Yeah.
This gal has already left home. She gets out of that abusive situation pretty very early on in the book. She's already left. She's already filed for divorce. She's already working her way through this. But she reads that nursery rhyme over and over to her son, and at some point, that last line hits her: seven for a secret never to be told. And she realizes that she hasn't told all her secrets. There is the worst instance of abuse. She has spoken out loud to no one. And she realizes that she has to, and she blurts it out to her best friend. And that's her turning point, Cyrus. That's
Yeah.
when things really start to move for her, and
Yeah.
when she starts to resolve all her issues, her emotional issues, her legal issues. So it's a turn, represents the shattering that atmosphere of secrecy, which
Yeah.
needs to be done.
Right. And that's why I wanted to ask you that question, Helen, because
Mhm.
I think just like I mentioned the meaning with that I took away from songs, my mother taught me. I
Mhm.
it's reading when I first saw the title Seven Blackbirds, I'm like, okay, what is that about? And then of course, like you mentioned, you have the nursery
It
rhyme
drops
that's kind of
in.
there. Yeah, but
Mhm.
then you also have
Through the
someone who's
book.
having to live it, who's having to live
Yes.
that. Right. So I want to talk to you about this as a storyteller then, because this is interesting for me, and I think my audience will find this interesting too. What comes first for you? Did the title come to you first, and you built the story around it, or did you write this story and you felt that just fit?
I wrote the story, and that at a certain point, um, the title just hit me.
Okay. Okay.
uh, when I was looking at the manuscript and realizing that, that turning point for her occurs, the nursery rhyme is threaded through that
Yeah.
pivotal moment, and I thought, bingo.
Yeah.
and and so it really didn't come to me at first. I had a couple other titles, and I was like, I'm not so sure about this. But that one just hit me. And I think for songs it did too. That it just hit me one day. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah. I think for myself, again, speaking just as a reader, and I think this is a great thing about discussing art, discussing writing, right? Is that everyone will kind of, based on their own experiences and backgrounds and their thought process, will take their own thing away. What I thought by the end of the book,
Mhm.
though, that is so interesting here, Helen, is that the title really does, at the end of the day, show where true freedom comes from, because you
That's
can't
right.
really have the freedom until you face everything, and being able to really be free, of any guilt, any shame, any regret. And so for me, that's kind of how it kind of summed up for myself. You've already let slip here that there's going to be another book, so I won't ask you about that one, but I do
Okay.
want to ask you about where we are now with the readers. What has it been like for you now to hear from readers like myself and others about how they're finding connections with these characters you've created?
It's been very gratifying. I've had it's very lovely when you write in order to connect with people,
Hmm.
and but you're sitting alone in your room scribbling away, right? It's so wonderful when readers reach out and connect with you, and
Right.
it's just been very gratifying. And the editorial response as well has been very gratifying this time around. It seems to have gotten a lot of notice, and I'm glad, because getting back to what you took away from the book, this is the message that you want to send. You want to raise awareness about what a wonderful thing it is when you can deal with emotional trauma
Yeah.
and heal it. It's going to make such a difference in your life. And
Hmm.
if you've got difficult situations going on, you can reach out and get help. And so the more exposure this kind of storytelling gets, I think the better.
I love that. Marsha Peterson Pollard, hello to you over there on IG. Glad you could join us. You guys joining us on Amazon. Thank you so much for the love and the hearts over there as well. And I do want to say I do have songs my mother taught me, Helen, in the show notes for those joining us on Amazon. But you and I were talking before we went live, and I did want to let them know that you said they don't have to have read songs my mother taught me before. That you kind of see them as companion to each other, right?
I do. They're companion volumes. They are each of these books is a standalone book,
Hmm.
and the topics are quite different. The protagonist is the same.
Hmm.
You can read songs first and then say, gee, I wonder what this gal's earlier story was, which is
Yeah.
hinted at. And then you can go read that, or you can read Seven Blackbirds and then say, gee, I wonder, what happens to her later on,
Yeah.
later on in her life, and read it
Right.
that way. So they're standalones, but they're a pair.
Love that. So we do have them both here on the Amazon side for you guys. I'm going to highlight for you guys Songs My Mother Taught Me, which is my introduction to Helen Winslow Black's work. So make sure you guys do check that out. Helen, great conversation with you. I really appreciate you stopping by. You have a website. Let our audience know how they can stay connected with you.
Okay, so my website is my name. Uh, oh, it shows on the screen, doesn't it, Cyrus? So I don't need
Oh,
to
yeah.
spell it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yay! Technology confuses me. So
Very
my
good.
website is helenwinslowblack.com.
Hmm.
And then let's see, what else do I have? I have a Facebook author page, which
Hmm.
is Helen Winslow Black, author, which I guess helps differentiate it from the page that I share with my friends and put my kids' pictures on and stuff like that. So
Love
there's the
that.
Facebook. And as we were speaking earlier, I do have Instagram, but I have not yet gotten up to, I need my technology minions to work with me on that.
Love that. Eric Jensen, hello to you over there on IG. I'm going to be speaking with you next week on our show. So glad that you could be able to join us. And Dr. Bama Bagley is joining us over on Facebook. She says good afternoon to you. Chris, hello to you over there on Facebook as well. Glad you could join us. Well, Helen, I'm looking forward to the third book. I'm looking forward to our next conversation. Thank you again for stopping by. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Cyrus. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, the pleasure is definitely all mine. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Cyrus Webb Presents here on Amazon, but also those joining us on the replay. Until next time, you all make it a great one. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.